Nerderotic.com.
Some unsolicited advice for the folks at Disney Star Wars. Let it go. The Fall of Skywalker is over. The Disney Star Wars trilogy is over. It was a complete disaster. People were moving on from it. We were starting to let it go. We were moving on to other things. I'm taking a break from watching my beloved Star Trek and Doctor Who die to talk about something that's already dead. But before I get started, if you like what I do here and you like independent content, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking and sharing the videos. And if you've come across this video, please make sure you are still subscribed. Thank you for all your support. Now let's get to The Fall of Skywalker. One more time. Two things came out. One in the Huffington Post and one from Forbes, obviously, talking about Grampy Palpy. And I'm not going to bury the lead on this one. He is officially a clone. Does this answer a question from the film? Certainly. Does it create 50 more about the entire Skywalker saga? Absolutely. Does it make it the Palpatine saga? Yes, it does. So we're going to start out with the Huffington Post, and this reeks of CYA, but I want to preface this by saying I don't blame the editors of this film for what happened. I don't blame them for the disaster. They were presented with an impossible situation, and they did the best they could, and they earned every penny. So apparently, Marion Brandon, who was the editor of The Fall of Skywalker, decided to talk to the Huffington Post. Now, again, I'm reading an archived web post because I don't want to give the Huffington Post any of my clicks, so thank you to RK Outpost for sharing that. Star Wars, The Fall of Skywalker editor reveals answers to major mysteries. Episode 9 editor Marion Brandon talks behind the scenes Star Wars secrets. Warning, Star Wars spoilers below. Just when you thought you had all the Disney Star Wars mysteries figured out, no, just when I thought I had moved on from Disney Star Wars, you keep pulling me back in. The Fall of Skywalker comes along, and now, in closing out the main 9-film Disney Star Wars storyline, The Fall of Skywalker offers surprising reveals. Rey was actually the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine. Well, she's the granddaughter of a clone. But now, fans are left pondering a number of conundrums. Why didn't we learn more about how Palpatine survived? Why did Rey and Kylo kiss? Also, what was going on with that Jaina and Lando scene? I don't care about any of those. You've got questions, and The Fall of Skywalker editor Marion Brandon has answers. Well, not necessarily. Brandon's had to keep certain Star Wars secrets for years, ever since she was an editor on 2015's The Force Awakens. So when she jumped on the phone recently with the HuffPost, she was glad to finally be able to chat. During the conversation, it became evident that some questions don't have official answers that can be gleaned from the movie. What was Finn trying to tell Rey? Brandon says she wants to leave that up to the audience. In other words, we don't have an answer. If Grampy Palpy was Rey's grandpa, Grampy Palpy, they said Grampy Palpy's better. Who was her grandma? Or, put it another way, who got down with Grampy Palpy? Brandon doesn't know, but she figures it's someone badass. I'm guessing behind every evil emperor, there's the bigger, badder evil empress, Brandon said. But those aside, there are plenty of mysteries the editor could shed light on. So without further ado, here are some of the answers to our biggest Star Wars questions. Why Rey and Kylo kissed? I don't care. She basically says it felt right in the editing room. They shot multiple scenes and they decided that they should leave the kissing one in. That's why they kissed. There's no story reason and she doesn't give one. Why Kylo died? He overdosed on the Force, just like his mom and his uncle. And don't worry, we're going to talk about the biggest question. I'm just getting these useless ones out of the way, and she barely answers any of them. Why Snoke was revealed as a clone is a beautiful example of Hollywood doublespeak and throwing Rian Johnson under the bus. I think that came up as a visual effect that we thought would be really fun for an audience. To create a visual that would tell the whole story, she said. I believe that's successful, really. We didn't have to change a lot of dialogue. You just have one shot and you kind of get it. I love stuff like that. We could just have a moment where you just see something in the background and go, okay, I totally get it. No, we totally get it. You were painted into a corner by the filmmaking genius known as Rian Johnson when he didn't explain a damn thing that your director had set up. So we understand what you're saying right there. Why Rose didn't get a ton of screen time. Again, Hollywood doublespeak. She just goes on to say that everybody loves Rose. She's a great character. She's a fan favorite, but we just didn't want to tell her story. We wanted to focus on the main three, and listen to this. There's a lot of characters in the film because Jar Jar wanted to make this film about a journey of three main friends. It's about friendship. It became very hard to service a lot more characters, especially after Rian Johnson left you with nothing. Brandon said, "She's an important character in the Resistance, and we tried very hard to show that in the film, and I think we did, but the film just really couldn't handle much more character stories." And I want to go back to what she said. Jar Jar wanted to make this film about a journey of three main friends and then Rey's conflict with Kylo Ren. That would have been a great explanation in The Force Awakens, and that's why Jar Jar Abrams and Rian Johnson are both responsible, along with their boss, Kathleen Kennedy, for breaking Star Wars. And that last scene with Lando and Jaina, she tells us to get our minds out of the gutter. Despite Disney setting up Lando as a pansexual, all of a sudden he's a fatherly figure to Jaina towards the end. It didn't look like he was hitting on her at all. What are you talking about? But when presented with the Finn Poe question, all of a sudden she's the artful dodger of linguistics. Among the many deaths in The Fall of Skywalker, including the entire franchise, was the demise of Finn Poe, the theory/fan dream that Finn, John Boyega, and Poe, Oscar Isaac, would end up in a relationship. You're allowed to have that theory/fan dream. I just really don't want to hear about it. The idea has been around since The Force Awakens, but Brandon apparently hadn't heard about it until now. Oh, really? Because I'm cutting it together, I'm kind of taking it at face value, and I'm not reading as much into it as an audience. And maybe that's just my nature. I don't know, she said, but I think, again, they're best of friends. There is kind of a brotherhood there where they understand each other and they've got each other's back. In other words, Reylos, sometimes a friendship is exactly that, a friendship. And I know it's not your fault because this goes all the way back to Slash with Kirk and Spock, and they were just friends too. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a fetish. I'm not too sure how cool it is to be public about it, but, your fetish is your fetish. I'm not judging. I'm sure you caught that poor Marion Brandon had to explain every single supposed quote-unquote character journey in the Disney Star Wars trilogy and The Fall of Skywalker because they had no resolution or journey or characterization. They were paper thin. While it's not unheard of these days to have a creative/repurposer/editor come out after a film or TV show is completed, having to explain character motivations or plot points in the film because they really didn't come across, go see Game of Thrones, I appreciate her efforts to save the time and hard-earned dollars of your average Star Wars fan so they don't have to waste their time buying and reading comic books and books that will be retconned later, but it does show that this thing is a complete failure. Let's hear her explanations, and of course, it was confirmed Palpatine is a clone, but that's not mentioned here. We'll get to that. Why Palpatine lost. The opening scenes of Palpatine Ian McDiarmid were tricky in terms of how much of the character's backstory to explain, how much to show of him, and what he wanted, Brandon explained. He, I guess, Jar Jar? It was kind of a delicate balance, and we went back and forth a lot about how much we wanted to reveal, she said. Some scenes changed quite a bit. Well, I'm not surprised. I heard there was a lot of reshoots, and I heard there's different endings. Maybe this confirms it. I don't know. I honestly don't care. The way that we wanted to present it to the audience in the end, we ended up showing a lot less of it than we started with. Interesting, but not really. There was originally a little more information about it, what was keeping Palpatine alive, but Brandon said it seemed to go off topic. It seemed to go off topic. The explanation to why one of the biggest bad guys in the history of cinema inexplicably returns was off topic. Okay, there was much more information in the film and so many characters that we wanted to have an audience to concentrate on. I think we felt we didn't want to clutter the film up with things you didn't need to know, she said, but they ended up doing that anyway. Oh my God, why Palpatine lost? And you got to listen to this one. In the movie, Palpatine says if Rey kills him, his spirit will enter her, and he will win. But she does kill him, so why doesn't he actually win? Also, could Rey have just unplugged the big machine that was keeping Palpatine alive? She can't, Brandon said to that suggestion, that Palpatine could just be unplugged. She can't kill him in anger. I've got a question. What if you're mildly irritated at somebody? Is that still considered anger? Does that allow a dark side spirit to enter you? What if you're just miffed a little bit? Is that considered anger? Does annoyance lead to the dark side? What about self-defense. There's still a little anger there, so anything other than a Dr. Kevorkian mercy kill, I think Palpatine would enter her. The whole reason Palpatine lost is because Rey didn't strike him down in hate. By ending Palpatine the way she did, reflecting his Force lightning back at him, Rey was able to avoid playing by Palp's rules. Palp killed himself, which is killing in anger. Grampy Palpy died because Rey reflected his lightning back at him. Does that mean she reflected his intent as well? Again, that was hate. Oh, wait, I've got some new information in from the Nerdrotic Studios.
I don't care! I don't care! I don't care!
The reason we have the repurposers and the creatives who had to work under the repurposers running out and explaining this film is because the obvious answer is it was filled full of plot holes. Also, they need people to keep talking about it. They are desperate because the conversation was dying down. Apathy is setting in, and there's nothing they can do to stop it because they broke the foundation a long time ago. We just saw this happen last Sunday with Doctor Who, multiple videos coming out. That's my next work. Doctor Who just suffered the same fate as this franchise did. They just had their last Jedi. And while there's a split within the split of the fan base, more of them leave, a mass exodus, and more of the normies leave. Doctor Who and Star Trek can't survive things like this. Star Wars can, but Disney didn't pay billions of dollars to make hundreds of millions on their films. And no, the future is not on Disney Plus because it can't bring in the billions they need from this franchise. They need it from the films. But I could be wrong because we're getting dinosaurs, so the future might be bright for Disney Star Wars. As far as Palpatine being a clone, it doesn't save the original trilogy. It still destroys Luke Skywalker's story and Anakin Skywalker's sacrifice, and it screws up Rey's story. So you're just making things worse every time you open your mouth, every time you have a comic book come out, every time you have a book come out trying to explain stuff. Just keep quiet and move on. Let people forget this. Unfortunately, they will for you, Disney Star Wars. And fortunately for the fandom, we can just focus back on the original trilogy and maybe just forget the Disney trilogy ever existed. And after the announcement of the Let's Get High Republic, it's a sad state of affairs that this is the only way Disney Star Wars can keep itself in the news. This must be the way. I have spoken. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, thank you for listening this long. I'll see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.